Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. I'm your host, Kate Burgess. I am joined again today by Korhan, but this time to talk about some Turkish delicacies. Korhan runs the food tour company Istanbul on Food, so he really knows his stuff. Korhan gives us a fantastic day plan on what to eat, as well as explaining some of the tricksters serving up that famous Turkish ice cream. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Korhan. Welcome back to Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. How are you today?
Hello, thank you very much. I'm very good. How are you?
I am good, thank you. I am excited to talk about both of our passions of food, and I cannot wait to learn all about Turkish food. And first, I
Right.
sort of wanted to touch a little bit on the history of food. As we spoke about in last episode, Turkish food is created from a melting pot of cultures with the European side and the Asian side. So, how has food changed in Turkey over its long history?
Well, you're completely right. What makes Turkish cuisine, a unique one is it's the combination of lots of different cuisines together. Let's say Turkish, Greek, Armenian, and Syrian, of course, all together. These are the flavors and the cuisines just came together all together and just created this beautiful, some of the Turkish dishes and the beautiful food culture. And of course, over the recent years, with the Turkish people, uh, you know, uh, as it's mostly about the women. As the women started, working, finding jobs, and being quite busy during the day, more and more, the families are just leaning towards some fast food, of course. And we are having, for example, a very big hamburger, culture in Istanbul nowadays, and people are looking, they are trying to just cook some, more easy dishes. I remember, and my mom never worked before, of course. She was a housewife, and she was just cooking us every day these dishes that would take her simply at least 3 4 hours to prepare. Every day, and no one has that time right now at the moment because everyone is working, and that's why, yes, eating out is becoming more popular. And if they're cooking at home, more basic dishes they are cooking, and that's why, as a result, I can say that it's getting easier to just find the very traditional Turkish dishes offered at the restaurants because people have stopped cooking them at home, as it's a time consuming. It's slowly turning into a profession. So that's something nice, actually, as visiting Istanbul as a traveler. Let's say only 20 years ago, you couldn't find the most traditional Turkish dishes cooked at home, served at the restaurants, because we had no reason to go and eat that dish. We were eating it every day at home. But nowadays, that's something nice. We are not losing those traditional dishes, but it's turning into a profession, which is I think you can't stop it. So that's why nowadays, when you visit some restaurants around Istanbul, your chances of finding some traditional, delicious homemade food is pretty high. That's I think how it has been changing over the couple of decades, I guess.
So, just like me, food is your thing. So, I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about you and your tour company, Istanbul on Food.
Right. Yes. I'm running this food tour company in Istanbul for about 9 years now, since 2012. And yes, I can say it was quite an has an interesting story, how we started, why we started, and how is it going right now. But yes, we offer four different food tours, and they just focus on three different neighborhoods in Istanbul, and we are trying to just offer as many different tastings for our travelers. And yeah, so far it's been going great, and people are enjoying their time. And hopefully we'll keep offering, the very best of Turkish food for another, let's say, 9 years.
And what made you specifically want to get into the food tour business?
Well, yes, that's an interesting story. To be honest, it has something to do with my wife. When I married my wife, she's an Australian. That's important. She moved in Istanbul, and I remember we visited the most important museums, the sites, the very touristy places. Of course, just she was being a tourist. And then after a couple of months, we settled down, and I just wanted to just live our lives in there, spend our time more like locals. We just started visiting some, very local restaurants. I started cooking her some very traditional Turkish dishes, and I remember what she told me that gave us the idea to start this business. She said one day we were at this very, traditional, very old establishment in Istanbul, and I was just offering her some, I think maybe, the sheep's head soup. Even though she didn't like it, she said, I like this experience better than visiting the Topkapi Palace. I mean, this is more authentic, and we should have done this kind of stuff earlier. And I just couldn't believe it. She said, yes, eating a very like traditional soup, but it was unknown for her, and experiencing it was just a better experience for her than visiting one of the world's most famous palaces. And that just gave us the idea. This is how people are changing, and they want to just also, they want to try the local delicacies, and they want to learn about the culture, not only the old buildings or the old stories or the numbers matter, but in order to understand a country, it's also the food, the culture, and the daily life. So I think the success of our tours is not all about just giving them the best food. It's also combining it with the culture and the daily life. So that's how we started. It's an interesting story, but that's exactly how it happened.
I completely agree with Lisa on that one of saying that food is the best way to fully immerse yourself in a culture. So I'm glad you
Yes.
started it, and it's awesome you did. And now let's get into the nitty gritty of what the food is. It's street food, two continents coming together, and as you said, neighborhoods all over the place providing different things. It's
Right.
bursting with different foods to try. So if you were to give a tourist or a traveler a day out of what they had to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, what would you tell them they had to eat when visiting Istanbul?
Of course, that's exactly what we do on our tour. So I'm not going to tell them to join our tour, but
They
let me
definitely
just
should. You know what you're
maybe.
doing.
But yes, breakfast is important. And I think most of the people will enjoy their breakfasts at their hotels, served at their hotels. And I really appreciate the Turkish hotels, how they serve some pretty traditional Turkish breakfasts in there. But, maybe to just go a little bit out of the way and to try some an interesting, a Turkish breakfast, they may just, visit a kebab shop, not eating kebabs, but kebab shops, if they're open during the in the morning, they always serve soups. Soup is actually a very, very common breakfast in Turkey. We used to, I remember drinking just soup, and there are some wonderful, for example, lentil soup. It's a great, it can be a food for the breakfast. But yes, they can start their breakfasts at their hotel, and it's quite the traditional Turkish breakfast is with some butter and jams and simit. They will be all provided a nice black Turkish tea, and they can have. And when they want to go a little luxurious, there is this dish called kaymak. That's the water buffalo clotted cream, and
Wow.
having it with some, yes, honey. As this is an expensive one, the hotels most of the time don't serve this, but they can find this dish around the spice market. There are some cheese shops around that. They can have it in a little little containers, and they are selling some simit right outside the spice market, and they can dip their simit into the honey and the clotted cream, and that will be another great way of having a Turkish breakfast. And yes, a lot of calories, but it's a wonderful dish. That's the water buffalo clotted cream is the most popular food on our tours. That's what people keep talking after we finish the tour. I always ask them, what was your favorite? And nearly 50% of the people at the end of the tour say that it was the water buffalo clotted cream. Lunch, lots of options, but let's go for, I think, for some traditional kebabs. That's something that you easily find some delicious kebabs all around the city. All most of the restaurants are just offering it, but yes, some Adana kebab, Urfa kebab, and maybe some shish kebab or Iskender kebab. That's made with the doner kebab, right? But definitely, if let's say you have only one day in Istanbul, it may just sound pretty mainstream, but I still don't want you to miss on the kebabs. You should still try them because it's really great. It's delicious. I've been living in Australia for some time, and that's what I am complaining all the time about. Nothing tastes like the kebabs in Turkey. It's different.
And we
Yeah,
claim that we have pretty good kebabs here as well. I thought we were doing
I
pretty
know.
good, but apparently we're not.
I know, and this must be the same all around the country in US, maybe in England. Most possibly, yes, you may enjoy your kebabs in there, but just wait until you just visit Turkey and Istanbul. Some delicious kebabs, snacks. There are lots of snacks, of course. So let's say around the city, you may get some stuffed mussels. That can be a beautiful, a delicious, and a very unique street food for you to just enjoy between your lunch and your dinner. Most of the fish shops will be selling these stuffed mussels. They are stuffed with some rice, it's cinnamony, and some black pepper, and they are steamed actually. And such a delicious, such a wonderful, very tasty food. I usually, it's not a snack for me, but it can be a snack for a snack for visitors. When I eat the stuffed mussels, I eat 30 or 40 of them. Imagine 30 or 40 mussels.
That's
Uh-huh.
two meals.
Yeah, and that's a proper meal for me. It's addictive. It's just crazy. And a lot of people will see those mussels sold around the streets, and usually I buy myself, just go and randomly eat it. But as you're coming from another country, you don't want to risk your precious, important time in Istanbul eating, stuffed mussels from a street seller and ruining your holiday. But you better go to a nice established restaurant, just a restaurant, to just try them. That's important. And so dinners can be, yes, because when we have dinners at home, it's usually some homemade food. We never eat kebabs at home. That's not true. We do not in Turkey eat kebabs at home. So what I will recommend you to just eat for the dinner, find a restaurant that serves some traditional homemade Turkish dishes, and they are mostly vegetable based ones, because red meat is a luxurious food. It's very expensive in Turkey for most of the people. That's why we just eat these, beans, eggplant dishes, zucchinis, lots of fresh, vegetables, and lots of rice as well. Go into one of those restaurants. You can find them easily and enjoy a very traditional, let's say, Turkish homemade food, and that can be your dinner. And at the same time, yes, you've tried kebabs and some homemade dishes and some street food, and also, yes, the breakfast was a very traditional Turkish breakfast. So I hope this makes sense. And yes, and I believe this is a very great way of spending one day trying Turkish foods in Istanbul.
People should always be at Istanbul more than one day. But if for some
That's
reason they've only got a day, that's what they need to eat. And of course, I
yes.
actually didn't mention dessert there because there are a lot of Turkish desserts as well that I want to talk about. And I've seen these awesome videos online of these Turkish ice cream vendors playing tricks on
Right.
people who can't seem to grab their ice creams and playing with little
Right.
kids. And they're so cute. How did this come about, and what is the ice cream? What's so special about it?
Yeah, well, what is so special about the ice cream is the reason why those guys are just making those tricks with the ice cream. It's the mastic. The mastic is the resin of a special gum tree growing on the Aegean coast of Turkey. You shouldn't confuse it with the Australian gum trees. And also it has something to do with the wild orchids roots, very starchy. So when you combine the goat's milk, that resin, and the wild orchids roots, it just turns into this very sticky ice cream, a very interesting texture. And this was important to keep this ice cream frozen you know with the very little effort in the old days. That's the whole idea. They used all this stuff because it just keeps, you can just freeze it with the very little effort, and that very sticky texture is the whole reason why those guys are just making those tricks. Because even a gelato seller want to just be as cheeky as a Marash ice cream seller. He can't, because his ice cream is not going to stick around, and his ice cream is not going to make, or gelato is not going to make him to just do those tricks. So I think, of course, there is no confirmed story or a story that I can tell you, but most possibly, as those guys, as they were selling their ice cream, just realized that their ice cream is so sticky and they can just play it just like a toy, just wanted to entertain some people, and that's kind of a marketing, right? And when you see someone just making tricks, everyone stops and watches them. That must be the reason.
I mean, I'm stopping and watching from afar online because I think it's great. So I imagine in person, I would immediately walk over and be like, I want what that person's having.
That's true.
And on the topic of desserts, we of course have to talk about baklava. So many different types came from the Ottoman Empire. And I'm actually lucky
Right.
enough to live in an area in Melbourne that's heavily populated with a lot of Lebanese and Turkish restaurants. And I
Right.
find that every time I go into one, they all do their baklava a little bit differently, have a little bit of different flavors. So, what is specific and special about the Turkish baklava?
Yeah, in most of the in Australia, the problem is the dough is not handmade, so that's important. It has to be handmade, and if you use any machine to just make the dough, it's not going to be a good baklava. So in Istanbul, when you eat a delicious baklava, you'll know that it's a handmade one. Every single sheet, 40 of them, and it's when I say making that dough by hand, it doesn't mean that let's just together just start making our dough at home. There's a saying in Turkey: in order to call yourself a baklava master, you need 20 years of experience making the dough, just rolling the dough. So it's the experience, and everything is handmade, and that's the trick. If you know how to make the dough as thin as it should be, and if you have the good quality the pistachio, let's say, butter, and if you cook it in a wood fire oven, it will be a wonderful, a delicious baklava. Imagine, in most of the countries, apart from Turkey, it's dying in Turkey as well. But can you imagine in Australia cooking, having a wood fire oven and cooking a baklava? That's a little unlikely. So lots of little details are just coming together and making a delicious baklava. So I think those are the tricks making it a special one.
I actually have a wood fire pizza near me that also do baklava, but I've never bought the baklava from there because I'm like, why would I buy baklava from a pizza place? But maybe I should try it.
Okay,
Maybe they've done it in the fire. I'll have to try it
here
and
it
get
is.
back to you.
Yes, you should.
So every culture has different customs and traditions around food. What does food mean in Turkish culture?
It is, well, yes. Different meals means, has a different meaning for us. But of course, when I'm just, for example, thinking about the weekend breakfasts, the food means just family coming together. And that's the same for the dinners as well. And it is, for me, when I'm just thinking about food, I always think about, women. It's changing, of course, but, a lot of that hard work and, how they just spend their time and just trying to make this very healthy, delicious, vegetable dishes. So it just reminds me all the time, the women of the country just preparing those dishes, especially my mom, of course. And other than that, I'm just thinking about food when you're just asking me the question. It is yes. The family, the mom, and the effort. It's all the hard work because seriously, preparing, for example, let's say a traditional Turkish dinner is just a soup, a side dish, a main course, and a salad. And I know it should be. It takes usually just 2 to 3 hours to prepare all these dishes, and I don't remember my mom just serving us only one single dish for the dinner. That never happens, and it's because yes, when the food is on the table, especially the dinner, it's not about quickly eating and filling your tummy, but spending some time on the table and with all the different foods on the table and having a family time. That was the purpose. That's how it worked for us.
That's the way I think food should be shared all the time, not to fill your
Right.
stomach, but to share it. Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
know you touched on it briefly last episode, but could you tell us a little bit about the difference of food that you would find in Istanbul in the high season and the low season?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference would be the fish. In the high season during the summer months, fish will be expensive, and for most of the different fishes, let's say for anchovies, for sea bream, for turbot and fishes like that, it will be the off season. And in winter, during the low season in Istanbul, they'll be at their most delicious season, and the prices of the fishes will be pretty affordable because usually fish is pretty expensive in Istanbul. So that will be a big change from the high season to low season. Talking about the kebabs, there will be no change at all. All the year long, you can just find the same delicious kebabs. But visiting Istanbul during the low season is also just going to give you some, easy access to the best restaurants in the city, of course, because we have some wonderful restaurants in the city, some very famous. They are Some of them are just in the top 100 restaurants of the world list, and it's almost impossible to just find a seat in those places during the high season. But in winter, that will be an advantage, a great advantage. And yes, you can enjoy the delicious, let's say, fine dining options in Istanbul easier in winter months. And when I'm just talking about the fine dining options in Istanbul, because of the very low value of Turkish lira, to be honest, I think everyone visiting Istanbul can afford, dining in the fine, restaurants of Istanbul. So when I'm just talking about the luxurious restaurants in Istanbul, it shouldn't just make you feel like you'll be spending thousands of dollars. No, yes, you will be spending thousands of liras. They will be the most expensive one, but compared when you just convert it, it will be pretty affordable for you. So it will be great in winter to visit those restaurants easily.
Well, Korhan, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you talking all Turkish food. And anyone that is interested in Istanbul on food, I will make sure that the link is in the podcast bio.
Thank you very much. It was great meeting you. And thank you everyone for listening to us.
I mentioned to Korhan off air that out of all the podcasts I've done and hours spent talking about food, those stuffed mussels is the dish I want to try the most. I'm so intrigued. They're so tiny. How do you stuff them with so much flavor? I have to know. But thank you again to Korhan for joining us. If you want to get in touch to learn more about the destinations around the world, message us on our social channels, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Low Season Traveller, or visit our website, www.lowseasontraveller.com. More now than ever, travel is better without the crowds.